Hey boys, it's HarmNone. Today, we're going to be going over the most armored vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online. Now this list is in ascending order, so the most armored vehicles are going to be closest to the top, and obviously the least armored are going to be closer to the bottom. So we got 12 vehicles. We're going to go ahead and start off with number 12, obviously. First up on our list, we have the Karen Kuruma Armored. This thing goes for $525,000 if you have the trade price unlocked, and it goes for $700,000 if you do not have the trade price unlocked. Now the Armored Kuruma is only on this list to appease the Kuruma fans, because I get a lot of comments every time I don't include this thing on an armored vehicles list. It actually has absolutely zero explosive resistance. It will die in one shot from literally anything: grenade, sticky bomb, RPG, homing missile, you name it, it dies. Now it is really good for bullet protection against NPCs. The Armored Kuruma is great. You basically are invincible in this thing until they actually blow up the car, which won't take very long, but you are invincible to NPCs pretty much, so long as you are inside of the vehicle. That's it for the Armored Kuruma at number 12. We're going to get into number 11. At number 11, we have the Imponte Duke of Death. Now this vehicle is free to all players, I believe, unless there's some sort of returning player bonus, but I'm pretty sure this thing is free for everybody. Now the Duke of Death is very slightly better than the Armored Kuruma when it comes to armor protection against explosives. This thing can take 2 explosives, so it will take 1 and then it will die on the second one. So a slight improvement over the Armored Kuruma. If you get RPG'd in this thing, you will survive the first shot. Hopefully you can run away, but we'll have to see, I guess. Now the Duke of Death also offers semi-decent bullet protection, however nowhere near as good as the Armored Kuruma, but it is a little bit better at explosive protection, so that's why it's a little bit ahead of the Armored Kuruma. Let's move on to number 10. At number 10 we have the Mammoth Patriot Milspec. Now the Milspec goes for $1.3 million to $1.7 million depending on if you have the trade price unlocked or not. It is equipable with front-mounted machine guns that do a pretty decent amount of damage, but the main point of the Patriot Milspec is its ability to take 4 RPGs or 12 homing missiles. Now this is pretty good. It's a pretty significant improvement over the Duke of Death and the Armored Kuruma for that matter. And another huge improvement with the Patriot Milspec and also all of the other Imani Tech cars is that this thing does have Imani Tech. So you can equip it with a missile lock-on jammer to avoid getting hit by a lot of those homing missiles. Now this will cost you a significant amount of money, but it is definitely pretty worth it. Now the last thing that I want to mention with the Patriot Milspec is if you have the slanted back on this vehicle, you can shoot out of the rear of the vehicle. However, you cannot be shot at. But if you shoot at a certain angle, you will not actually be able to shoot through. So you have to be really careful exactly where you're trying to shoot from. But for the most part, this vehicle is pretty damn good for backing people down. Anyways, that's it for the Patriot Milspec at number 10. Let's move on to number 9. Next up, we've got the Barrage. Now the Barrage goes for $1.6 million if you have the trade price unlocked and $2.1 million if you do not have it unlocked. Now the Barrage can take 5 RPGs, so it is a very slight improvement over the Patriot Milspec. However, the Patriot Milspec and other Imani Tech cars like it are probably still a better option in comparison to this thing because they do have that missile lock-on jammer upgradability. So that is pretty nice to have. However, the Barrage is a decent vehicle. You can seat 4 players in this thing. As you guys can see, there's dual machine guns on the top of it, actually dual miniguns right now, which do, a semi-decent amount of damage, and the vehicle is relatively bulletproof depending on the upgrades that you have. That's pretty much it for the Barrage at number 9. Let's move on to number 8. Next up at number 8, we have the TM02 Khanjali. This thing goes for between $2.9 million if you have the trade price unlocked and $3.9 million if you do not have the trade price unlocked. Now the Khanjali is kind of a unique vehicle where it can take the exact same amount of RPGs as it can homing missiles. Now that number is of course 8. It can take 8 RPGs, 8 homing missiles. Either one of those amounts will destroy this thing. Now the Khanjali is a little bit better for defending yourself than some of the other vehicles we've gone over on this list because of the driver controlled cannon on this thing, which you can take things out really easily with this. It also seats 4 players, 2 of which get access to the grenade launchers mounted on the turret, and the third of which gets access to the mounted machine gun on the top of the turret. So pretty good. You can also equip it with a proximity mine dropper, so if anybody's tailing you, you can kill them with that, hopefully. The Khanjali is on the expensive side, but it definitely is really far on the useful side as well, I would say. It's a very good vehicle. It is, of course, slow because, well, it's literally a tank. And I thought I'd mention before we're finished with the Khanjali that the APC, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be asking where it is, takes the exact same amount of damage that the Khanjali does, 8 RPGs and 8 homing missiles. So that's it for the Kajali and I guess technically the APC, so let's move on to number 7. Next up we have the Nightshark. This thing goes for $1,250,000, and for that price you get a really great armored vehicle. Now, the Nightshark is one of the fastest armored vehicles in the entire game. It can take 27 homing missiles from an Oppressor Mark II, and it can take about 9 RPGs, so it is kind of a heavy hitter. The Nightshark also has front-mounted machine guns, and these things are absolutely piss weak. They take forever to kill anything, so they're pretty hard to defend your vehicle with. However, luckily it can stand up to quite a lot of damage, so you should be fine most of the time. The window plating on this vehicle is also non-functional, so I would recommend not equipping it. The only reason that I have it is because I think it looks cool. So that's pretty much it for the Nightshark. On to the next vehicle. Next up at number 6, we have the Bravado Half-Track. This vehicle goes for $1.7 million if you have the trade price and $2.3 million if you do not have the trade price. Now the Half-Track has the exact same armor as the Nightshark. It can take 27 homing missiles and 9 RPGs to kill, but the reason that the Half-Track is ahead of the Nightshark on this list is for one particular reason. The windshield on this vehicle is completely bulletproof. Now I know you can see me breaking the glass on the screen right now, however, these bullets are not actually passing through the front windshield. If you don't believe me, you can test this for yourselves, but you gotta trust me, this is absolutely 100% the truth. Now another unique feature about the Half-Track is you can also not be killed from behind with a machine gun or with, well, really anything. The only way that you can shoot the driver and the passenger of this vehicle is through these side windows. These are not bulletproof. As you guys can see, I'm only shooting on the one side right now, but if we go around to the other side, you can see the window is actually broken. Now the Half-Track is a little bit on the slow side, making it a little bit less useful in a lot of scenarios, but it is still a really good vehicle. It is equipable with a proximity mine dropper as well, which is very nice to have. And on the front of the vehicle, it is equipped with a roller as well, so if you need to hit something out of your way, you can do it with the roller and you can just keep pushing it. And of course it also has the mounted machine gun on the back of it, which is pretty good for taking out any of your targets, provided that of course you have a gunner. So that's it for the Half-Track at number 6, let's move on to number 5. Next up at number 5 we have the Insurgent Pickup Custom. Now in order to actually get the Insurgent, it's going to cost you $1,350,000. However, then you're going to have to take this thing into an MOC or an Avenger and upgrade it into the Pickup Custom, which is going to cost you another couple $100,000. It is a little bit on the expensive side, but it's actually pretty cheap in comparison to a lot of the other vehicles we've gone over. Now the Insurgent Pickup Custom has a few unique features. It can hold 9 players within it, and by within it I mean some of them are going to have to stand on the sides of it and some of them are going to have to sit in the bed. And of course, one of them is going to have to go on the mounted machine gun or minigun that's on the top of the vehicle. Now, the Insurgent has the exact same armor as the Nightshark and the Half-Track both. However, I feel like it is the most useful out of the 3 vehicles, which is why it's ranked this high. It is also equipable with a proximity mine dropper, which it has over the Nightshark automatically, but it does not have front-mounted machine guns. So it does kind of lose out on that, but the Nightsharks are piss weak anyways, so who really cares? The Insurgent is a battering ram. This thing is an absolute unit. I've driven around in an Insurgent for probably an hour straight getting shot at by cops while having a 5-star wanted level, and they never even made the thing smoke. So it's got a lot of armor, probably more armor than you'll need most of the time. So that's it for the Insurgent Pickup Custom. It's time to get into the true heavyweights of the armored vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online. So let's move on to number 4. Now, unfortunately, I never did promise that the vehicles on this list would be good, so next up at number 4, we have the Rune Zaba. Now, this thing is an absolute piece of junk. It is a terrible vehicle. I want everybody to know that I fully say that. But the Zaba is very unique in a few places. This thing is, of course, an amphibious vehicle, meaning that it can drive on land, and of course, it can also drive in the water, and it can even float, so it's kind of a boat as well. Now the Zaba completely sucks because it has a wheelbase that is just ungodly short. So getting flipped around and getting flipped over in this vehicle, it happens like all the time. The Zaba goes for $1.8 million if you have the trade price unlocked and $2.4 million if you do not have the trade price unlocked. So it is a rather expensive vehicle. However, for the money that you pay, you do get pretty damn good armor protection, I must say. This thing can take 14 RPGs and 14 homing missiles. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't have a Monty tech, so those homing missiles will kill you pretty quickly, but being able to take 14 RPGs is a bit of a feat. I didn't say it was good, but it is pretty well armored. That's it for the Zaba. On to number 3. Next up, we have the Omni EGT. This thing goes for $1.8 million, and it was added with the Criminal Enterprises DLC that is new in Grand Theft Auto Online, so not a lot of people know just how good this car actually is. Now, with other Imani Tech vehicles, they did get bulletproof windows, or bullet-resistant windows at the very least. However, this thing has sacrificed its ability to have bullet-resistant windows in order to get much better armor protection. As you guys can see, there is an armor upgrade that is available for this car. However, we're going to talk about what it is like without armor first. The Obey Omni EGT can take 6 RPGs or 3 homing missiles without any armor equipped on the vehicle. Like I said, it is also an Imani Tech vehicle, so you can of course equip a lock-on jammer on this thing as well. So that is very, very useful. Now, where things get really interesting is when you have armor equipped and you have the Imani Tech lock-on jammer. Once you equip the armor on this vehicle, it is able to take 12 RPGs, so it doubles, and it is also able to take 12 homing missiles, so that quadruples. And if you couple this with the fact that it cannot be locked onto, this suddenly becomes one of the best armored vehicles in the entire game. Of course, that is dependent on it having the lock-on jammer, which costs about $500,000, but it definitely makes this thing one of the best armored vehicles in the entire game, especially one of the best armored vehicles that you can store in a garage. So for $1.8 million plus upgrades and everything, the Obey Omni EGT is truly one of the best armored vehicles in the game currently. Definitely check this thing out if you guys haven't already. With that being said, let's move on to number 2. Next up, we have the Benevolence Terabyte. Now, the Terabyte is one of the most armored vehicles in the entire game. In fact, it is obviously the second most armored vehicle in the entire game. The Terabyte is a pretty useful vehicle in general, and a lot of people don't really use it for its armor ability. That is definitely not really what people consider buying the Terabyte for. However, just so you know, it is quite well armored. This thing can take 32 to 34 homing missiles from an Oppressor Mark II, or from just a homing launcher, I guess, as well, before it blows up, which is an absolute ton. That's more than an Oppressor Mark II carries. So you're going to be good against a single Mark II if it comes after you when you try to drive the Terabyte. On top of that, for being such a massive vehicle, it is actually relatively quick, so I can't really hate on it too much. Of course, you also can have your Mark II inside of this thing, as well as a weapon workshop and upgrade station, and you get access to a couple of other things as well. But that's it for the Terabyte for its armor. It's time to move on to the number 1 most armored vehicle in Grand Theft Auto Online, and a lot of you guys probably by now are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. And of course, in number 1, we have the Mobile Operations Center, but more specifically, the Mobile Operations Center cab that drives the MOC around. This thing can take 67 to 70 homing missiles from an Oppressor Mark II, making it by far the most armored vehicle in all of Grand Theft Auto Online. Now, is it very fun to drive? No, not exactly. It is just a massive truck. It is quite fast, so that is nice, and it has really good stopping power. Obviously, you can bash pretty much anything that's in your way and move it out of your way. That is pretty useful. Now, the MOC goes for $1.2 million with the trade price and $2.8 million without the trade price. So it is a little bit on the expensive side if you upgrade it fully. Now, albeit the MOC is a little bit of a pain in the ass to get. You have to go into the services menu and call the MOC, and it spawns at a random location. So I don't necessarily 100% recommend picking this thing up, specifically if you just want to use it as an armored vehicle. I'd say go for the Obey Omni EGT instead, because I feel like it is an overall better vehicle. But the MOC cab is still by far the most armored. So there you have it, guys. Those are the top 12 most armored vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online in 2022, currently as it stands. If you guys enjoyed this video or found it useful, a like is of course very appreciated. If not, dislike. Subscribe if you guys are new, and I will see you all in the next video. Until then, take care. Peace.